Hi, Tammy. Thanks heaps for joining me today.
No worries, Shannon.
So, how long ago did you do Creatrix?
I completed my certificate in 2020, right before COVID hit.
Ah, good timing, huh?
It was very good timing. We were very lucky to be the last in-person group. So yeah, it was lucky timing.
Excellent. And why did you even get interested in doing it in the first place?
I have been searching for the core thing that's going to heal and release the deepest sort of trauma and wounds from women, um, for probably over 10 years, for a decade. I reckon I've been searching for it. It started off as I thought, oh, I'm going to be a naturopath. That's going to get to the core. And I started doing that. No, no, that's actually not it. And then I did Reiki, and all of these things that I've done were like stepping stones to eventually finding Creatrix, which when I first heard about it, I thought, and then it kept popping up. And I thought there's something in this. I need to listen to the information properly, without any judgment, because at that point in time, I did have a lot of judgment because I hadn't cleared it. And once I listened to the information, I knew straight away, like right in my gut, in my heart, that this was the answer that I'd been looking for, to work on that deepest level of subconscious that I'd been journaling about and reading about, and yeah, really sort of getting into trying to understand how, as a human being, how we work, basically.
Yeah. And you talked about clearing judgment. What has that done for you? And just explain to the people out there that are watching what you even mean by that.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? But I just literally got off a call before I started speaking to you, Shannon, and we're reading Pema Chodron's book, which is called, here it is, Welcoming the Unwelcome. So it's about like, I think she actually wrote it during COVID time. So it's about that uncertainty of life and welcoming it instead of being like resistant to it. But in the third chapter that we're doing at the moment, it's all about the polarization of life. And it was talking about how judgmental our brain is. And it's our ego that, will look at a homeless person and will be like, oh, and we'll have a judgment sort of thoughts and about that, or we'll see someone who's really successful driving in a Porsche and we'll have a judgment about that. And it's a very instinctive and reactive thing that our brain does, because our brain is like a computer, and it's been built on these programs from when we were young that have been inserted by the people around us, because we watched, our society and our humans, whoever we had as our caregivers, and we copied that so that we knew how to live in this world. And so we're going to have judgments around, the people around us and around our life. And I don't think I realized how many judgments I had until I'd had my creatrix breakthrough. So it wasn't just judgment that I had creatrix, it was lots of other things. But that is one of the big things that I notice now, is that I'm much less reactive and more accepting and open hearted to everybody around me, um, because those things, those deep beliefs are cleared. Does that make
That's,
sense?
yeah, absolutely. It
Yeah.
sure does. And that just opens up connection on a whole new level with
Oh,
people that we
so much.
necessarily wouldn't have connected with before, too, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. It opens, instead of having that tunnel vision, I suppose, it really opens things up to a much wider accessibility, so that your world would have been a much narrower focus before, and it really does. It opens it up, um, and allows that brain chatter to just kind of settle, and it's quiet. It's quieter and in the background, instead of being so, in the forefront of the mind, or even in front of you like a filter. It's more, yeah, in the background, and they're still going to pop up. You still have little judgments, but they're on much softer level, and there's a lot more awareness around it, so that you notice it when you do it, and you're like, yeah, but I get it, you know, because that is me also. I am that as well. So yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. I can't even imagine how that's impacted your world and the people in it too. Like how have they noticed changes in you since you've done Creatrix?
Well, I guess I'm sort of talking about like people that you see in the street, but it's more impactful on the people around you because they're the people that you're more reactive to. The people in your life, your children and your husband and your mum and your dad and your sister and your brother, and you know the people that are really close to you on a day-to-day basis are the ones that trigger you and push your buttons. So um, having that level of judgment dropped dropped right down, you see the person actually just as a person instead of all of these filters that you've put over them. So if I use my relationship with my mum, I was awfully triggered by my mum in basically every conversation that I would have. And it would just be hard. It was the relationship would felt hard and it wouldn't be relaxing. The conversations would be argumentative and you know, I'd be constantly thinking she just doesn't listen, she doesn't understand me, she doesn't, you know, she doesn't see who I am. But I realized that it was a two-way street. I also wasn't seeing her. And now I have a very much more open-hearted view when I'm able to listen better for a start, because the judgments aren't there. There's not that internal monologue going on about, you know, while you're having the conversation. It settles it. It's quite a profound thing that um, it's really difficult to explain it, isn't it? It's something that you really need to experience to be able to understand that for the rest of my life now, while I've got my mum here, she's 72, I don't have that crap going on in my head. So I'm more open to her and we have, you know, it's such a beautiful relationship now.
Just get to be different with her to how you were before.
Yeah. Yep.
And could
Amazing.
you, before we started recording this, you were talking about the compassion that you have for her now as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that just naturally comes through. You don't have to try and have compassion. Whereas before it felt like it was, you know, I'd be reading books like Pema Chodron books and things, and it's you're using willpower almost. You're using such energy to try and remind yourself when you jump into a judgment or, um, you know, you'd have a thought about someone that wasn't compassionate. You'd be like, oh, just doing it again, you know. Whereas when the beliefs, um, you know, are changed internally on at such a deep level, there's no trying anymore. It just happens naturally. You're just open-hearted. So the compassion just comes through naturally.
Yes, it really does, doesn't it? And it kind of creeps up on you as well. Like for
It
me, I know
does.
that I've like just sort of looked at myself and how I've been acting since I've had Creatrix, and I'm like, oh, hold on, I wouldn't have reacted like that before. So it's really interesting how subtle it is, but how profound it is, and how I don't know, I just feel so much more like myself than I ever have.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
stripping back all of those layers that we've accumulated, not just in this lifetime, but I believe, you know, from, you know, our ancestors, that are all that stuff's passed on, just like genetically, our physicalities, all the other stuff's got to be passed on as well.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, you know, there's a lot there. There's thousands of ancestors. There's a lot of stuff there that, you know, we need to strip back so that we can become who we are with it as an essence. We're just love. So if the
Mm.
more we're stripping back, the more we're getting back to that layer of just, you know, the essence of love, which is what we want for the planet. And
Oh,
for, you know, imagine that, a planet of people who are stripped back to our essence, which is just love.
geez, yes, please. I want more of that.
Bring it on.
Absolutely, absolutely. Which is why we're on
Yeah,
this mission too, right? Because
it
this is
is.
what we want for the world.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
One person, one woman at a time.
Yes. Yep. And collectively, that can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think about it. You can get overwhelmed thinking about it, but I think about it as in it's not even we have to. Every one woman has to have creatrix because the ripple of one woman having creatrix is sending out a ripple of her behavior. You know, like it's exponential. That's the word. It's exponential. Just
Yes.
in one woman having creatrix. So it's pretty
Yes.
it is pretty profound. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I've heard stories and stories again of just that with, women having creatrix, and then the changes that are starting to show up in their children because of the way that they've changed. It's been
Yeah.
phenomenal to hear. Like so good.
Yeah. Well, when you take away that reactivity, if you're not reactive, then the other person opposite you feels that there's nothing to fight against, and then they can drop their stuff, you know, their
Yes.
walls come down, and there's much more authentic and genuine interaction.
Yeah.
And it's like you've created a safe space because you're vulnerable, and they're able to then, you know, show up.
Absolutely. And I think we also forget how much influence and the impact that we as one person can actually have on many. Yeah.
I think that's our biggest challenge as human beings is we come into the world feeling so very flawed, um, and not powerful at all. And it's the truth is the absolute opposite of that. And I think especially in Australia, we were talking about this before, that tall poppy syndrome of not being able to relate to people who are really successful. And part of that, if we're looking at it honestly, is jealousy. There's a huge judgment around it that they've done something bad to become wealthy, or to have it all, and or that you can't have it all. There's so many beliefs around, you know, being successful and happy. You know, I know for a certain amount of time for me, I actually even felt guilty when I was happy before creatrix, you know, being around other people who weren't happy. You know, it's such a we live in such a polarized, convoluted world, really. It's quite complicated, but it can be really simple if we just, you know, if we all could strip it right back and become who we came here to be, it'd be such an incredible place.
Yes, definitely. And I think, we did talk about the Aussie battler thing before as well. And, I
Mm,
think at the core, that is still playing out for so many of us.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, we're here to change that.
We are, one woman at a time.
Yes,
A million to
definitely.
go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're on this
No
journey.
pressure, because we're
It's
all in it
exciting.
together.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's so exciting. And just seeing more and more stories of women step out of this place it's so inspiring and empowering, because
Yeah,
together we really can make a massive difference.
yeah, absolutely. And the world needs it. Women need it. I mean, men need it as well, but you can you can only focus on one thing
Yes,
sometimes.
yes,
So,
absolutely.
but we're the creators, you know, we birth life into the world. So I think it is really, really important that we, um, you know, and we also bring that creative energy as well. And there's a lot of stuff, you know, happening in the world that needs that feminine energy.
Mm.
And I think you were talking before as well, like a lot of women, we're sitting in the masculine because we've needed to try and empower ourselves, but we still also need to recognize the power in the feminine,
Mm.
and the power in that feminine flow that you were talking about
Yeah.
earlier. Like it's makes life so enjoyable, and the
Mm.
ease at which things happen, and you know, it really is beautiful once you get into that space of things not pushing, you know, a square peg into a round hole. It's yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It certainly is. Like, I seriously have just experienced it for the first time that I can remember in such a long time. And life is just playing out so effortlessly, but so much is happening as well. And it's like, wow, is this how I'm supposed to be living? Because this feels good. It's productive, it's efficient, it just feels like me. Like no
Mm,
hustle anymore, like no push pull. It's just happening, and it feels good.
yeah, that's an amazing space, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we were talking as well just about how many people aren't living in that space and how heartbreaking it is. Once you have it, you just want everybody to have it. You want everybody to share in being able to live in that space and, you know, live with that ease and not have to struggle and not have to fight for things and feel like there's not enough and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, we've got a big job ahead of us, but we just need women to really put their hand up and say, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, absolutely. So those women that are listening now that are curious, you know, like, or even just thinking, is this for me? What would you say to them?
You've got nothing to lose, literally nothing to lose. The problem with this is that it is fun and it takes such a short period of time that it's actually really hard to believe that it could do all these things. But it really can. It really is. I believe that it will be one of those things in the future that we look back and go, yep, we were part of that wave that started. You know, that incredible invention of creatrix that came from that, you know, wonderful woman Maz, that, you know, that's changed the world and changed the way that we recognize that women are different from men. I mean, so much, but it's just, you've got to take the leap of faith. It's, you know, like Indiana Jones, you've got to take the leap of faith to get to the other side to save yourself. And then you can save everyone else around you.
Yes, absolutely. So take the leap of faith. Thanks, Tammy.
You're very
Awesome to
welcome,
chat to
Shannon.
you.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.